Hello, and welcome to Introduction to Conversation Design with Amazon Lex. My name is Nancy Clark, and I'm a conversation designer on the AWS Professional Services team. I'm here today with Rosie Connolly.
I am also a conversation designer on the AWS ProServe team.
And so today we're just going to talk to you a little bit about the overall process for conversation design using Amazon Lex. We're going to start by talking a little bit about conversation design, where it fits into the process for building a conversational AI application. Then we'll dive into a brief introduction of the overall process. We'll walk through some standard use cases and some questions, and then we'll think through a backlog for proof of concept and beyond. The first question is, where does conversation design fit? Conversation design sits right at the interface between business needs, technical feasibility, and user needs. So when you put these all together, conversation design is right in the middle. And as conversation designers, we're meant to gather information from all of these different stakeholders and implement them in our designs. The business value of investing in good design is that you can plan for efficiency, you can measure twice and cut once, you can get stakeholder alignment before you build anything, before you write a single line of code, and make sure that everyone is aligned on what you're building. And you can gather information that can help you learn and iterate through the process. So let's start with an overview of conversation design. So what does a conversation designer do? So they understand things as they are. How do people speak with these conversational AI applications? We can think about envisioning the possibilities, what things are possible through the technical implementation, and then we can map a plan to get there, combining all of the different pieces of information to build out a plan to drive towards what we want to build for our conversational application. And so let's go over some design considerations. One of the design considerations that you should think about is to set expectations around the constraints of the application. So on the right here, we have an example where the conversation application is asking, what can I help you with? The user doesn't necessarily know what's available within your application. So when you ask an open-ended question like, what can I help you with? It's hard for the user to know, well, what things are available. One way to think about that would be instead to envision it as, I'm here to help you with X, Y, and Z. What would you like to do? And present a menu of options so that the novice user can choose from that menu and say things that the conversation application will be able to understand. Another thing to think about would be to anticipate breaking points and accommodate for them. So on the right, we have, which type of room are you interested in? The user doesn't know what rooms are available. Do you have suites, kings, queens, what's available? And so here the bot is just surfacing another prompt that says, please choose a room type, but it doesn't give any additional information. So the user still doesn't know what's available. So instead you could consider it something like, what type of room are you interested in? The user says, I don't know. And you could surface something like, our most popular room is the standard queen. Would you like to hear about it? Providing the user with information that will help them have a successful interaction with your application. Another consideration to make would be to use context and memory to modify responses. So on the right, we're building an example quiz game. The first time a user logs into this quiz game, they hear, welcome to the quiz game, the game where you have to guess to win. If you get up to 8 out of 10 right, you could win a prize. Ready to play? And then when the user logs back in for their second session, they hear the same prompt over again. But in this instance, they already know what the quiz game is. They've already played it before. So you might want to consider using context and memory to make it seem more conversational, more engaging by a simple, welcome back, ready to play? And then finally, conform to the way that humans speak and not the other way around. So on this example, we have, I have a double, queen, and king. Which would you like? The user says large, and the bot doesn't understand that large is a synonym for king. We can anticipate that humans might have different ways of expressing the same value, but that is really difficult for a bot to understand unless it's explicitly stated. Something that you could consider when you're building your bot is to write out those synonyms for the different values within your bot. So for example, I have a double queen and king, which would you like? user says large, we as humans, when we're designing this system, we know that large is a synonym for king. So we can put that into our bot and say, okay, 1 king on date. Would you like to continue the reservation? Another thing to consider is the conversational interface. Humans don't always interact with technology or different modalities of technology in the same way. So you can imagine that the way that you speak when you're on a phone call versus when you're typing things on a chatbot is very different. Considering how you want your application to be built is really important. Amazon Lex integrates with a number of different interfaces. So you can build a voice phone call with Lex and Connect. You could build a web-based chatbot using Lex. You can build an SMS bot using Lex and Pinpoint, or you can make another interaction through existing platforms like Facebook Messenger or Slack. So this is something else to consider when you're thinking about what kind of application you're going to build. So here's an overview of the conversation design process. Right now we're at step 1, beginning with a conversational AI intro. The next step would be to identify your use cases. So what things do you want your application to be able to do? Then you're going to define the persona. So thinking about what is the persona of your application? Are they friendly? Are they formal? Thinking about all your brand guidelines, and we'll go through that later on in this presentation. We're going to script some happy paths. Then you'll want to map your flows. So think about all of the logical progression of how a conversation would work and how that will be mapped in Lex. Then you're going to build an interaction model, which tells all of the possible utterances and slots, and we'll get into that later on as well, but all of the different things that a user could say to your bot that you want to be able to capture. And then you're going to want to prototype to test your design and make sure that the experience is what you want it to be. And then you'll test and iterate. Next, we're going to start thinking about use cases. A use case is, what does the user need? So what are they trying to do? What are they trying to accomplish? All right, so we have Rosie here today, who is a representative from Anywhere Bank. Rosie, let's talk about some of your users and sort of what use cases they might have. So what would be your first user?
So I think our first user is going to be a standard, more typical customer of Anywhere Bank. And this person, our John Doe here, really wants to be able to just make a payment so that he pays that bill on time.
All right, so as a customer of Anywhere Bank, I want to make a payment so that I can pay my bill on time. This is an example user story, which is pretty straightforward. This is representing an average user of this Anywhere Bank. Let's think about another use case.
Our Jane Smith here, as a young person who has a high level of comfort with technology, is probably a college student. And since college students don't always have all of the money to pay off their account at one time, probably Jane wants to be able to pay that minimum amount due on her credit card, but she has to know what that balance is in order to do that.
So we have 2 different users who are trying to make a payment on their credit card. And we'll sort of run with that as like a use case for building out this conversational design. Now that we've started identifying this use case of making a payment on a credit card, let's talk through what is the solution to this and sort of what are the problems that your users are facing now, and why would building a chatbot help solve those problems?
Our users definitely do need to know their account balance, and they need to know when it's due so that they don't pay late fees. So we're going to make sure that we let them know that. Our users who do have a high level of comfort with technology, they may want to be able to use their phone to do tasks for the bank. So these callers who maybe don't have as much comfort with technology, we do have a lot of customers who call in every month to make that one-time payment on their card. We want to be able to build out some self-service for these customers so that we are decreasing our call volume in the call center.
Awesome. Makes sense. So now that we have some ideas about what the problems are that our users are facing and what opportunities there are to improve that, Let's talk a little bit about improving your user experience from today and what you envision for the future. So,
Great.
what is the experience today for your users?
Well, today, in terms of self-service, our customers can only use the website to make payments, or they can call and they can speak to an agent. But our current IVR system is only using DTMF, and it's just a routing bot. There's not really any self-service built into that. And unfortunately, our authentication rate is only about 35%. And we try to use their credit card number that is associated with our bank that we've issued to do that authentication.
Gotcha. And so then what are you looking for the future, for like a future conversational application?
Well, the first step is that we are wanting to actually build out an SMS based chatbot so that users can do payments over text. And then along the way, maybe we could allow customers to change their payment due dates over the course of the month. Not regularly, but if they don't want to pay on the 15th, they get paid on the 1st. Maybe we let them pay on the 1st or the 2nd.
Nice.
But we need to make sure that this is a secure experience because it's texting. So at the moment, our plan is to launch that text experience from the app so that the customer is already logged in. And so we know that it's secure. For our future work that we're interested in doing is also building out more of a voice system so that customers could make payments over the phone. We'd really like some suggestions on how we can improve authentication through the voice channel. Do you have any suggestions for that?
Yeah, so Amazon Connect offers something called Voice ID, where users can save their voice imprint so that the Connect system can identify them using just their voice.
That sounds great.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So now that we can kind of see, here's where we are and here's what we're looking for, we're going to work towards building an SMS-based chatbot that users can use text to make payments using their phone to help create that self-service environment and make it easy for customers without having to call in to the call center. All right, so before we do that, let's talk about defining AI persona. The AI persona is who your bot is. So when people interact with your bot, it should reflect some of your brand guidelines and make it kind of a cohesive experience for your whole enterprise. So do you want to give me some keywords for your brand guidelines?
Sure. Our top brand guideline is that we want to be known as being a very secure bank. This is first and foremost for us, but we also want to make sure that we are trustworthy for our customers and that we are transparent in providing information. We also want to be seen as innovative. We're trying to kind of change that image so that we're moving more along with technology and moving toward the future.
That sounds great. And then we talked a little bit about this, but do you want to just quickly go over what the purpose of this application would be?
Absolutely. We want to make sure that customers are able to make their payments through self-service. That's the first thing. We're ultimately looking to improve the overall customer experience and decrease call volume and improve efficiency for our customers.
Awesome. I want to talk to you a little bit about the characteristics of your bot. Based off of your brand guidelines, maybe you could give me some persona characteristics in the form of, I want it to be X, but not Y.
Well, we definitely want our bot to be knowledgeable and helpful, but we don't want it to sound condescending. We'd like it to be friendly, but maybe not overly familiar. And we'd like it to be not formal, maybe semi-formal, but we definitely don't want it to sound stuffy.
That makes a lot of sense. Using these sort of characteristics and brand guidelines will inform how we end up writing the prompts of what the bot will say, and it may actually drive the conversation as well. So when we're thinking about putting this all together, the very first step to do is to write happy path scripts. Happy paths are, in an ideal world where the user and the application, there's no failure between them, we want to script out exactly how that interaction will look. For example, here I have a happy path for where we don't know who the user is. So we have, hi, thanks for contacting Anywhere Bank. In a few words, what can I help you with? The user wants to pay their bill. You say, great, I'd be happy to help with that. Can you give me the last 4 digits of your account number? And so on and so forth. We also have another example here where we have some information about who the user is. So we can make this a little bit more contextualized exactly to their experience. So we say, good afternoon, Jane. In a few words, what can I help you with? Want to pay a bill? Sure, from your account ending in 6472. Yes, thank you. So we're scripting out happy paths for the different users that we've perhaps identified and guiding how we want these interactions to look. In thinking about how we want these interactions to look, it's important to keep in mind the different ways that you might elicit information from a user. So for example, we've been working with this open-ended prompt. So you as a banking customer, you probably have a ton of different use cases that you support, right? All of the different possible things that someone can do at your bank. One consideration to make would be to have an open-ended prompt like, what can I help you with, right? It allows the user to say any of the various things that your bank might be able to help you with. Another option would be to have a menu-based prompt structure where it's, I know about cars and bikes. Which would you like to help with? For a banking customer, this may be something like, I know about making payments or checking my account balance. Which would you like help with? And then form filling is one where the bot is expecting a particular kind of answer from the user. So it's eliciting in this one, what product model do you need help with? And it's expecting input from the user that's directly a product model. Something else to keep in mind would be how you present these options. So for example, you could have a single possibility like tell me your name. You could present options and have multiple options that comes in pink or blue. Which color would you like? Or you could have many options. So which item are you interested in? Maybe the user doesn't necessarily know what items are available. You can have some kind of prompt that is like, I can help you narrow down these categories. Something else to consider is confirming intent. So there's different ways that we can confirm with the user what they're trying to do, right? So you can explicitly ask, okay, you need help resetting your password, is that right? Or you could have an implicit understanding where you think the user said, reset my password, your application thinks that's what's happening, and so it presents, okay, password help, here's a link to reset your password. And you can consider the pros and cons of these when you're building out the script for your happy path, because depending on how you want the customer experience to go, you may consider choosing an explicit confirmation or an implicit confirmation. And then finally, you might want to think about being personal. So you can customize the interaction to the information that the user has provided. For example, if we know that this user has logged into our application before, we can pull that data. Could say something like, last time you were in the middle of the survey, would you like to start where you left off? Let's script a happy path for Anywhere Bank. In this example, we're going to talk about making a payment over text, which was the use case that we decided on earlier. I think that for this example, we're going to start with sort of a menu-based approach. So the assistant might say something like, hi, thanks for contacting Anywhere Bank. I can help with things like making a payment or checking a balance. In a few words, tell me what I can help you with. And then what would the user say?
User says, I want to make a payment.
In this example, we have, I see 2 credit cards associated with your account, one ending in 1234 and another ending in 5678. Which one would you like to make a payment on? So it's pulling the information about this user and offering it up right up front. So then what would the user say?
The one ending in 1234.
So the outstanding balance on that account is $506.09. The payment is due Tuesday, August 15th, and the minimum due is $35. How much would you like to pay?
$100.
And we're going to pull our saved checking account. Would you like to pay with Anywhere Bank checking account ending in 1111?
Yes.
And when would you like to make that payment?
On Monday.
Okay, $100 will be credited to your credit card account ending 1234 on Monday, August 14th. Is that correct?
Yes.
I've confirmed your payment. Your confirmation number is 123456789. Is there anything else I can help you with?
No.
Thanks for contacting Anywhere Bank. Have a great day. So in this example, Happy Path, we are choosing to make the experience a little bit more custom for this user. We know what cards are available. We know when their payment is due. We're pulling that information from their balance, which helps to make this a happy path and move the conversation along. We also use an explicit confirmation, asking about whether or not it's correct. Once we have our happy path, then we want to convert this into a logical flow that Amazon Lex will be able to understand. So one of the ways that we do that is by documenting the conversational flow. This includes not only what the bot says, but also any logic checks that may happen behind the scenes that the user doesn't know about to make sure that we're communicating to the developer explicitly what we want to happen. So for example, in this flow, we have the bot initiated. We check, are they a returning user or not? If they are a new user, we give them the full menu prompt. Hi, thanks for contacting Anywhere Bank. I can help with things like making a payment, checking a balance, or opening an account. In a few words, tell me what I can help you with. If they are a returning user, we go down the true path and we say, welcome back. In a few words, what can I help you with? Because these users already know what's available in our application. If the user gives a valid response, then we transfer them over to the crew in this toy example. And if it's false, we route them to a prompt that gives them those options again, just in case they've forgotten. So the way that Amazon Lex works is it is a goal-oriented dialogue system that works by capturing utterances, intents, and slots. So an utterance is any word, phrase, or sentence spoken to the bot during your interaction. For example, we have, I want to make a payment from my checking account is an utterance. It's what the user has said to the bot. The intent is the user's overall goal. So what are they hoping to achieve during their interaction with the bot? In this example, we might call the user's overall goal a make payment intent, right? The user is trying to make a payment. Once they've accomplished that goal of making a payment, that intent will be fulfilled. And a slot is a detail that the user provides in order to accomplish their goal. For example, in this toy example, we have checking account or checking as a slot, which is a necessary detail in order to understand how the user is going to make this payment. From which account will you make the payment? The checking account is a detail that the user needs to provide in order to fulfill this overall goal. So when you're thinking about developing an interaction model, the interaction model is the place where you capture all of the possible utterances, combine them into intents and slots, and you can use that information to actually build out the Lex bot. But one of the tricky things about building out an interaction model is that you can have a ton of utterance variation. Just for one intent, this make a payment intent, you can imagine that there's a number of different ways that a user might want to make a payment. So can you give me an example of one way a user might say it?
Absolutely. I want to make a payment.
Definitely. Can you think of a few others?
Help with paying the minimum due on my credit card.
For sure.
Or change my monthly utility bill payment.
Mm-hmm.
And send $100 to my landlord.
Absolutely. So you can see that there's a ton of variation in the way that someone might want to make a payment. And you should try to have a broad scope of utterances per intents, but you don't need to make every single possible utterance because Lex uses natural language understanding to make predictions about the different things that someone will say. For this variation that we've captured here, there are probably a few different slots that exist within this mini data set that we've created. We might consider having maybe 3 slots, such as account type, amount, or recipient. In this first utterance, are there any slots?
I don't think so.
Yeah, we don't have an account type, we don't have an amount, and we don't have a recipient. So those are probably pieces of information that we'll want to collect with our bot in order to fulfill this goal. What about in the next one?
It wants to make payment on the credit card, and the payment amount is the minimum due.
What about the next one?
The next one, I think we only know the recipient is the utility bill.
Exactly. And then finally,
The amount is $100 and the recipient is the landlord.
Yeah. You can create whatever slots or whatever intents work best for you. This is just a toy example. But the idea here is to capture the details that are necessary in all of the variations of utterances that you might hear from a user. All right, so now that we have some of our design artifacts, now we get to go through the testing and iterating process. So we've scripted a happy path, we've looked at a conversational flow, and we've begun to design an interaction model. So the next step would be to prototype your design and get input from realistic users. This could be your coworkers, it could be your friends and family, but you want to make a mini mock-up of your design and see how people interact with it. So this could be reading out your happy paths and seeing where people go off script or what things seem unnatural, going through your interaction model and maybe capturing different ways that people are saying utterances, perhaps that you didn't think of. And then you want to go back through and make sure that you're capturing the pieces of information that you found during your prototyping sessions until you're satisfied that you've gotten a good handle on what's available and what you want to support in your bot. I want to just quickly show you some artifact samples. These are the design artifacts that we've gone through during this process. So we have a sample dialogue, a conversational flow, and an interaction model. And these are the artifact samples that maybe you would pass off to a developer to say, okay, this is how I want this intent to be built, and this is the utterances I want to support. Do you have any questions for me?
I do. How many utterances do I need for each intent?
So there's no set hard and fast rule, but you can imagine that for certain intents that are more complex than others, there will be a greater variety of utterances that you'll want to capture. And then for some maybe really simplistic intents, maybe there just aren't that many ways that someone would phrase it. So with that being said, a general rule of thumb is about 20 utterances per intent.
Great. And are there AWS resources that can help us with this?
Yes, definitely. So Amazon Lex has extensive documentation, which is available online. And you can also reach out to the Amazon AWS professional services team to help you with any and all bot building activities that you may have. Thank you so much for joining us today, and have a great day.